Hi everyone, this is Gail. Welcome tonight to my channel. We are the Be Bodacious community where we don't let life stop us from living. Tonight we are going to be talking about emotional support animals. I had talked with Laurel Stewart at Candy the Wee Service Dog about being on tonight. Unfortunately, she has not responded yet. She did say she'd be here, but she's not responded yet to the invite. So we'll see if she comes. She's been on before. And she actually moved her dog, Candy, from being an emotional support animal and trained her to be a service dog. So she knows a lot about that process. She is an amazing resource that we're always glad to see on here. So I've pulled together some various things so we could talk about it. I do want to go into a little bit of depth here on the differences between a service dog, an emotional support dog, and a therapy dog. And I want to touch for a minute on a psychiatric service dog. The reason for that is some people get psychiatric service dog, therapy dog, and emotional support dogs confused. They are different type of assistance animals. They do different things. Some are trained. One of those three categories is trained and one is not. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Do hit a like button on the live stream if you like it, and memberships are available. There's more information on the Join tab below. So, all right, let's dive in here for just a minute. Let's talk about the differences between the psychiatric service dog. No, let's talk about the difference between service dogs and ESAs, and then we'll go into the graphic that I have. I want to make sure you know, too, that this is all based on my experience. It's not legal, so, don't count on anything being legal because it's not. It's just based on my experience. I've been a service dog handler since 2007, so I've had just a few phone calls to the Department of Justice and other places about service dogs. Certainly lots of experience there with handling. So hello, we just had a watcher join us. Hi, come on in, dive into the chat at any time that you are ready to do so, okay? All right, so let's pull up this graphic on the difference. Here we go. I've got a couple of things here to share with you. I am going to link some of the resources down below and some in the community tab. Pull this up. Because when you're looking at how to make your dog a service dog, you need to, have some basic understanding here. And so that's what we're going to be doing some tonight. Here's the graphic that I want to share with you. Let me take this out of the way so I can see it. Okay, so we have a comparison between service dogs, therapy dogs, and emotional support dogs right here on this graphic. I pulled it up from wonderpupdogtraining.com, and they did a really nice job here. So let's look at it. Okay, so ADA covered rights to bring in animals into public establishments. You may have seen ads on YouTube and online in general saying, be able to take your pet with you anywhere. Sign up now. Make your pet an emotional support animal, and they can go most places that humans can go, so you can keep your pet with you. That's not quite right. That ability to go anywhere that you go, that's covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. That gives rights to bring animals into public places. Now, when I say animals, let me back up. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the animals that are recognized as assistance animals are dogs and miniature horses. When we're talking about emotional support animals, that can be any type of pet. So we'll go into that a little bit more in a few minutes, but I just wanted to define those terms. So, service dogs right up here, top line, rights to bring an animal into public establishments, service dogs, yes, therapy dogs, and emotional support dogs, no. So you're going to say, well, don't therapy dogs go into hospitals and nursing homes and so forth? Yes. On invitation, when allowed, trained therapy dogs do go into those situations. They also may be at, disaster sites on college campuses during like finals weeks, those kinds of things. On invitation in those very limited circumstances, they can't go just everywhere. Emotional support animals also do not have rights to go into public establishments. In fact, let me pull this up. I meant to bring this up earlier and neglected to do so. In Tennessee, emotional support animals are banned from a lot of places. And I meant to find out. Okay, here's the info on that one. I want to make sure you understand about how and why on that. Governor Bill Lee signs the law about emotional support animals. So if you're in Tennessee, and some other states are coming along with this also, just know that bringing your emotional support animal in a restaurant is now specifically illegal. And I am talking about, it's my understanding that if they have to cross anywhere inside the restaurant, even to go to outdoor dining, you can't do that. You are allowed to dine outside, just not in. So this says, I'm just taking it straight off of the thing here. A new law bans emotional support animals, ESAs, from going inside restaurants or grocery stores unless they are trained or being trained to perform tasks or work for a person with a disability. That training is the difference between an ESA and a service dog. So in order to take your dog, your ESA, and make your ESA become a service dog, you have to have training. You can't just put a vest on an animal and call it a service dog. It's the training. So this is as of March 15, 2024. He signed the new law. It was originally filed in January. And some people don't like it. Some people do. I will say that from the standpoint of a service dog handler, I have had fewer problems with fake service dogs and undertrained service dogs in Tennessee since this law went into place. We are joined by Mel. So, hey, it's good to see you. Yay. Welcome tonight. Always good to see you. Mel is an awesome person, and you are always dynamite to see around. So I'm not sure where Laurel is tonight, so we'll just kind of go with it. And if she can't be on tonight, we'll bring her back on and talk about that, because she actually trained Candy, aka Candy the Wee Service Dog, had her trained and trained her to become a service dog from an emotional support animal. So until I hear more from her, I'm just going to kind of talk on the differences for right now. Okay, so now let's go back into this magic graphic here that I've got. Pull it up here. Okay. All right. So here we are. Going back, line 2. Service dogs need to tolerate a wide variety of experiences, environments, and people. And that's because they're going places. You know, you don't have to hire a trainer. You don't have to have a program dog. You can train your own dog to be a service dog, but they have to be able to tolerate a wide variety of experiences. So they're going to need to be on a shuttle bus, going to festivals, going to a movie theater, grocery store, the park, zoos, any place that you might go. Certainly doctors' offices and hospitals are going to have to be able to tolerate all of that. Therapy dogs also are going to need to be able to tolerate, because they're going to be going to some of those places to work in the various settings, whether they're, hospital, nursing home, court, so forth. And more emotional support animals don't have to be trained in that because they don't go places with their handler. This designation works primarily for housing, and we're going to get into that. May live with their disabled owners, even if a no pet policy is in place. Yes on service dogs, yes on emotional support animals, no on therapy dogs. So you can have your pet declared an emotional support animal, and your pet can stay with you where you live, and that accommodation can be made. They just can't go places with you. So primary function is to provide emotional support through companionship. Yes, that's emotional support animals. They do get confused with psychiatric support animals, which is a different section of service dogs. So we're going to get to that too. Specifically trained to assist just one person, that would be service dogs. Therapy dogs assist in many, many ways in your public settings, children, abuse victims, and so forth. ESAs don't have to have any kind of training at all. They're for your family or you. And provide emotional support and comfort to many people. That is a therapy dog. So let's hop over here just a second on the difference between a psychiatric service dog versus an emotional support animal. There is a little bit of tweaking done to this. This is not a perfect graphic, but it's helpful, I think, to see anyway. And that is, on your psychiatric service dogs, they're ADA covered. These are trained service dogs. So what psychiatric service dogs can do is they can stop a panic attack. They can notice when that anxiety is building up and mitigate it. They can help break up a nice nightmare. Not nice nightmare. There's no nice nightmare. But they can break up a nightmare and ground the person who has PTSD. And they are trained to do those things. Emotional support animals are not. Now, some emotional support animals will take it upon themselves to do some of those things, but they're not task trained to do it. And most of them don't hit that 95% mark like a service dog's going to. Service dog needs to tolerate a wide variety of experiences like we talk about there. Both may live in with their disabled owners, even if there's a no pets policy. You can get an accommodation. Now, may fly inside the airplane with their disabled owners. Yes, on a psychiatric service dog, but actually no on the emotional support animal. And the part about primary function is to provide emotional support through companionship. That is your emotional support animal, because your psychiatric service dog does provide companionship, but that's not their sole function, because they've got the training to do many more skills. And they are trained to assist just one person where an ESA is not. And they don't provide emotional support and comfort to many people. Psychiatric service dogs are trained for one person, and emotional support animals are for yourself or some other members in your household, but they're not trained to do just one. Okay. So, all right, let me go back over here. Oh, thank you. And Mel's pointing out that most people do that, put a vest on a dog and say that they're a service dog. Yeah, some people do that, and it creates problems, not just for the service dog community, but also for the emotional support animal community. They're just not helping anybody, because when you have an untrained emotional support animal in a public place and they create a disturbance, the next support animal that comes in the door, they set up that negative expectation. So from that point on, the next one and the next one and the next one that comes through that door, staff is already starting to back up and be insecure and nervous just simply because they've had an animal that was not trained because they just put a vest on the dog. You can't do that. That's actually illegal in lots of places to do that, and it's not good. Some people actually call it fraud because you're impersonating a person with a disability. I've also heard it called fraud because you are masquerading and trying to push your ESA off as though it was a service dog. And people have argued with me. I was actually in a Walmart one time with Pipsy, and these little dogs were in the shopping cart. But as we walked by and they walked by, they started barking and snarling at my service dog. Well, because my service dog was trained to assist me with a disability, I went to a Walmart employee and I'm like, look, if this happens again, can I call security? And in that conversation, I found out that yes, indeed, I could call security and they could be asked to leave. Walmart would give the person who had the dog the opportunity to come back in and complete shopping, but not with the dog. So let me see. All right. And you don't ever want to be in a position like this person is, talking about not being able to go places. This is a biggie. Let me show you this one. Now, I took this photo myself. We're in a restaurant. The dog is clearly labeled emotional support, and the dog was actually being fed from the table. And that is a non-starter. You can't do this. Had this dog been task trained, it would have been okay to be in the restaurant. It would have been okay to be with the handler, just not in this situation. And there it is, just kind of looking around, not very well trained at all. And there's a photo of my service dog, and we're at the hospital. So 4 on the floor, not in the lap, etc. You can see some of the differences right there. And if you take it upon yourself to train your dog or to have your dog trained to go from an ESA to a service animal, that's part of the difference in being able to be in public. Now, we talked for a minute ago, about emotional support animals being able to fly. Okay, the laws and rules changed about that in 2021 because, as Mel pointed out, people were just putting a vest on their emotional support animal and calling it a service dog without taking the steps to have it trained or to train it themselves. And it's all about the training. So that created problems. So that rule changed in 2021. And airlines responded. They always have the option to follow a different rule, like if they want to be like animal friendly and so forth. That's up to the airline, but they have pretty much all following about ESAs. Southwest Airlines here, one example, recently announced that consistent with the new regulations with the U.S. Department of Transportation, we're making changes to our policies regarding trained service animals and emotional support animals. Effective March 1, 2021, Southwest will only accept trained service dogs for travel and will no longer transport emotional support animals. With this revision, we'll only allow service dogs that are individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of a qualified individual with a disability to travel with the customer. The types of disability include physical, sensory, psychiatric, intellectual, or other mental disabilities, and only service dogs will be accepted, including those for psychiatric service. No other species will be accepted as a trained animal. So, and there are now rules. It's even tougher for people with service dogs to fly because there are new rules in place. Customers, and I'm taking this straight off Southwest, okay? Customers traveling with trained service dogs must now present a complete and accurate DOT service animal air transportation form at the gate or ticket counter at the day of travel to affirm the service animal's health, the service animal's behavior, and training. Customers should complete the form, which will be available on the airline's website and at airport locations after booking the travel. And they will no longer accept emotional support animals effective 2021. Let's pop over here to flying with, and we are on American Airlines, and it says, it outlines that you can travel with a service dog with all kinds of forms and advanced notice. And some of the guidelines are a little different depending on the length of your flight. Also, Delta Airlines emotional support animal and psychiatric service animal and pet policy is that the change March 2021, DOT's new rules for some emotional support animals. Delta stopped recognizing ESAs on January 11th of 2021. Psychiatric service dogs, on the other hand, are still allowed to board the cabin of Delta flights free of charge. For ESA owners traveling with Delta, their emotional support animals will be treated as normal pets. That means your ESA will be subject to the same fees and restrictions applicable to pets. And unfortunately, many ESAs will not be able to board the cabin at all due to these restrictions, and many owners will not be able to afford the fees, which can run $125 each way. So if you're traveling, flying with an emotional support animal, you have to now be prepared to pay those fees. And traveling with a psychiatric support dogs, they're allowed to board flights in the cabin free of charge. They're also exempt from pet restrictions because they're not pets. But there are some things relating to size and weight and breeds. And it says if you're an ESA owner or suffering from mental or emotional health disability, you may be able to qualify for psychiatric service dogs if certain conditions are met. And that would go back again. We'll bring it up here. And it goes back again to your guidelines on training your service dog. So right now, your pet, let's say, can become an emotional support animal with a statement from your doctor. And that works for housing. So to turn your service dog, to make your ESA into a service dog, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand your disability and make sure that you have a qualifying health disability that qualifies under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And if you're not sure, then consult the ADA.gov on the Department of Justice website. Look at that and take that and go talk with your doctor. You're going to need a doctor's letter for emotional support animal anyway, but if you're going to take it a step farther, you want to make sure you have that letter because that's the starting point. You take that letter, you have a disability, and you take the letter from your doctor and you go talk to a trainer or a service dog training program and say, hey, I have this animal, it's my emotional support animal. I want to do the training to make it a service dog. What kind of training do I need to do? And I want to stop right here because not all dogs, not all emotional support animals are going to be able to be trained as a service dog. And I know you're thinking, well, I'll just go to the pound and get one. It's not that easy. You have to have an animal that has the temperament to be able to handle multiple situations calmly and consistently. So if you have, say, an Australian Shepherd, or let me back up and I'll give you a specific example. I was talking to a woman the other day, and her dog that she was trying to train, and she was trying to take her dog, sweet dog, beautiful dog, but she was trying to make her emotional support animal into a service dog. And this was a Australian Shepherd Husky mix, two very high prey drives. Okay. And she wanted to keep the dog in her apartment, but it wasn't working out. And it wasn't working out not because that wasn't two very smart breeds, because they are. And it wasn't working out because her dog wasn't smart, but it was an attention thing. Both of those dogs were very high prey driven dogs, but you had the breeds combined, and she had both of those high energy breeds in one little body, and the poor dog just could not focus. Okay. And it wasn't anything wrong with the dog, and it made a beautiful ESA for her because she could hold it, she could cuddle it, but when she stepped outside the apartment, it was interested in every smell. It was interested in all the cats, all the squirrels, all the really small dogs that were smaller than it, as well as birds and you name it, where a service dog has to be able to ignore those things and focus. Wasn't anything wrong with the dog. Wasn't that it was not a fabulous emotional support animal for her. It just didn't have the temperament. So she had been working with this dog for months. And she'd had a couple of trainers tell her, really, you're just barking up the wrong tree here. And she contacted me online, and she was like, what am I going to do? And I said, well, you've had trainers that tell you that you're barking up the wrong tree, and I'm sorry, but you got to listen to the pros, and I hated that, but that's just the way it is. So the first thing you're going to do is make sure you actually qualify for a disability under the ADA. Then you're going to get the letter from your doctor, and you're going to talk to a trainer. One of the things you're going to be talking about is you want to make sure that your dog is trainable to become a service dog, because it's really easy to mess up service dog training. I owner trained my first one, and I will tell you, I worked with two trainers, husband and wife team, and I worked with one that, worked with them. So I guess 3 trainers in total, you could say. Had I not had them hand holding me, there are a million different ways that I would have ruined my service dogs training. And that's why I think it's so important to talk to a trainer. Even if you don't wind up being trained by that trainer, talk to them anyway, because there's a lot of value in that, especially if you're going to go from an ESA to a service dog. Because if you give your service dog table food, for example, and you go into a restaurant, you've already trained your dog to know that it's okay for them to have food. And when you go into a restaurant, they've already been told they can have it. So they're going to expect that, and they're going to want that, and that can lead to problems in a restaurant, for example. Another thing is I was already taught all my life that when you have a dog, you teach a dog to sit by putting just a little pressure or a little tap on their back legs. You say sit and you tap, and eventually they figure it out, then it goes together. Well, you can't do that for a service animal, because you have just taught the service animal that any pressure on its back, it's time to sit. If you stumble and you need that service dog to brace you, you've already messed up the training, because you've already taught the dog that it's okay to sit when you have pressure on him. So if you start to stumble and you go to brace against your dog, you're both in the floor, and that's not a desirable situation. So I would suggest going to a trainer and having your dog evaluated to see if it's got the temperament. Your doctor's letter that you have that tells what kind of disabilities that you have gives your trainer or program valuable information to go on, because they may be able to even suggest areas of training that you may benefit from but haven't thought about yet. So I just go talk to a trainer. But you can train the dog by yourself. There are lots of YouTube videos. So sit down, take your pen, take your paper, write your notes. When do you feel like you need a trained service dog versus an emotional support animal? What's going on when you need your emotional support to be a service dog? Write that down. If you have anxiety attacks and you need your dog during those anxiety attacks, write that down. Just make the list. If you think that your ESA is beginning to alert to your blood sugar, write that down. Note what your blood sugar numbers are and keep a record of it. Because then after several days, a week or so, you're going to have a really clear understanding of exactly what you need in a service dog. And so you're going to be training your ESA to become that assistance animal. So you can train your dog by yourself, but I would suggest either way you go, make that list, because you're going to make notes, and that's going to help you track your progress as you go through the training. And you're going to want to test your dog's manners, okay? Because your dog has to have the ability to be calm, alert, and well-behaved in a variety of public settings, whether you're at a movie theater or in a concert or at a festival or in the grocery store. You have to know how your dog is going to respond 95% of the time. So your dog training has to be at that level. And there is actually something called a public access test. Now, it is not a requirement necessarily by the ADA that your dog has to be able to pass this test. But when you're training your ESA, you want to make sure that your dog has the capability of passing that test. You may not be able to judge that yourself. You may need to have somebody you know pull a copy of the public access test off an online website and go with it. Because you need to be at that level, and that's the big thing. So there are examples of public access tests. Going into this one from psychdogpartners.org. Hey, Tanya Lambert's here. Hey, Tanya. Hey, I didn't see you come in. I'm sorry. Hello, and not startle, and that's important, or get distracted. And she says, because of a distracted service dog can miss a medical alert, the owner could fall if they're leaning on them. There's just a lot of things that could happen if your dog gets distracted or is distracted. And she said she shared the live. Thank you. Laurel had said she would be here, but I haven't seen her, and it may be my fault because I sent her the link late to come and join. So it's probably on me. If she can't come in, if we don't see her, I will send her another link for another date if she can. So, yeah, so don't hold that against her. And please, everyone that's listening here, I see several of you, do give me a like on the video, on the live stream when you like it, because that really super helpful. And memberships are available. You can find more information about that at the join link down below. Okay, so let's talk about the public access test. Because if you're going to if you're gonna train your ESA to become a service dog, you want to make sure that they can pass the service dog test for public access. This is really important, even though it's not necessarily required by all trainers. Like I had to, because with my first one, because the trainers that I used, even though they were private, they're like, look, we're starting a business here and our name is on your dog. So you're going to take this public access test. I didn't realize we had to. I didn't realize we even could. I thought at the time, oh, this is just another hoop that he's making me go through. But okay, but it's not. It's really important. So psychiatric service dog partners, free service dog public access test helps evaluate the service dog team behavior in public and no pets places. And it's often used toward the end of a team's initial 1 to 3 years of training. So this website, psychdogpartners.org, I'm going to put that in the description box later. Or actually, probably what's going to be better, I may make let me just do this. Let me make a note, and I will create a Google document with all the links. That way I'm not going to flood the description box with tons of links, and you'll have a problem. So I'm going to put them in on Google Drive. And you can just download one document and have the information for all these links. All right, so public access test, we're just going to look at it. New tab here. All right, so for a public access test, you're going to need to pass it. You're going to really need to have a friend or someone score you on this test, and that is because you can't always tell what your dog's doing because you have to watch where you're walking, like when you walk. But your service dog has to focus on you or where you're walking. They can't be looking all around, and you can't necessarily judge that when you're walking your dog. So go someplace like this website, download the public access test, give it to your friend, and say, look, you've heard me talk about it. You've maybe helped my dog become a service dog from an ESA. Walk me through this test. And people think it's really, really easy to do this, but look at how many pages there are to this. And there's guidelines and controls and things like that your service dog needs to be able to pass. And it's going to take a while for your dog to become a service dog and to be able to do all of these things. But these are things that you have to go through. So it's all about the training. So that's a lot of information about how to make your ESA a service dog. And I want you to know that the ESA designation, that only works for housing. And you may be thinking that you can just have your pet declared an assistance animal by becoming an ESA, and all of a sudden you can go places and do things like we talked about before, but you can't. This is really for housing. So let's look just a second at the housing information. And let me go in. Hopefully you will now. I don't get alerts from a lot of the channels I follow either. YouTube actually limits that. So the more interactivity that you give to a channel, the more likely you are to get those notifications. So on the public access, and she says like, share, and subscribe. Yay, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, Tanya says she was so nervous about that last test at the mall. My stars, yes. All right, so when you're talking about taking the public access test, Tony and I got our service dogs. I'm on my second one, and I went with a program dog this second time because training the first time was just so full out. And that's why I really sympathize with a lot of people who want to train their ESA to become a service dog. And wow, they could not have put us in a more terrifying, anxiety inducing area. We were at a mall next to the food court, next to the arcade that was next to the food court, and there was the mall playground right there. Lots of noises, lots of people, service dogs all just lined up, ignoring everybody. Now, our hearts were beating 100 a minute. Okay, it was crazy. But, just as we talked about a minute ago, they all went through and they had their checklist, and it wasn't this same test, it was a different one, but they went through and all the dogs were able to pass this because they had worked with them so much. And it usually takes 1 to 3 years of effort. Okay, right here on this public access training point, 1 to 3 years. So if you've got, there we go, if you have an ESA that you're going to have to do some untraining on where it's possible, you have to know it's going to take 1 to 3 years of effort, not just every other day, not just 2 or 3 times a week, not just the 1 day a week you may be in class. It's a 24/7 effort. But it's worth it to get the kind of support that you deserve. Okay, and Tanya said, Tanya says, also remember when you're doing things like the access test or anything that makes you nervous, if you're nervous, it will go down the leash to your dog. Absolutely true. And there's a difference between your dog refusing to do a task or just part of their personality. I have to pay attention to Archer because he's easily distracted. It's part of his personality. Yeah, I was talking about earlier, I was talking to a woman the other day. She contacted me from online, and she had an Australian Shepherd Husky mix that she was trying to move from an ESA to become a service dog. And it was just a personality thing. It just did not work for her. And Tanya says, most definitely she was a nervous wreck. She wants to eventually get another service dog. Yeah, I didn't realize, after I lost my first one, I didn't realize how much I relied on him. And then when I was kind of in between service dogs, it was really, really, really very clear. So, yeah, I understand that. So let's go into just a second here about the ESA designation for housing, because I'm not sure I covered that well enough. This is from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it talks about assistance animals. And with what they're talking about ESAs for the most part, because this is where ESA designation actually comes into play. And this says an assistance animal is an animal that works, provides assistance, or performs tasks for a person with a disability, or that provides emotional support that alleviates one or more of identified effects of a person's disability. And it says an assistance animal is not a pet. So providing an emotional support that alleviates one or more identified effects of a person's disability. So you're going to have to look at what your disability is, again, with the ADA guidelines, if you're going to go from an assistance, an emotional support animal, to an assistance animal under the ADA, a service dog. Now, the obligations of housing providers Individuals with a disability may request to keep an assistance animal as a reasonable accommodation to their housing provider's pet restrictions. They cannot refuse to make reasonable accommodations in rules, policies, practices, or services when such accommodation may be necessary to afford a person with a disability the equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling. So this, and I'm going to put this link in the document I'm fixing to create and link for you, but this is where the emotional support designation comes into play. And Justia writes for service animals, not a pet, and writes for emotional support animals. Emotional support animals are less specialized than service animals. Rather than assisting with specific tasks, they typically provide comfort and support for people with emotional or psychological rather than physical conditions. So you can have, I just want to kind of highlight this a little bit if I can. Okay, so we're talking about people with emotional or psychological rather than physical conditions, but we are talking about people who have a disability here. So it's easy, relatively easy, to qualify to have a service dog versus an emotional animal. But like we talked a few minutes ago, you've got to do your homework and put in the training. The other thing is emotional support animals may be dogs, but can be other species such as cats, rabbits, birds, fish, or any type of small animal that's commonly kept in a home. The ADA doesn't cover those. The ADA covers service dogs and miniature horses. But this says that the Federal Fair Housing Act does provide them with rights. So there's a lot of reasons why a person might want to, let me take that off. There's a lot of reasons why a person might want to move their ESA, to make their ESA become a service dog. So look at those reasons, talk with your doctor, talk with trainers, make sure your dog's temperament is on par with what you need for a service dog, and take that public access because it really does help. Tanya says, right when I had my apartment, they could not count Archer as a pet. I actually had a second dog that I had gotten as a pet because, and I was the only one in there allowed 2 dogs because of that. Yeah, that makes a difference. Also, some dogs, like we're talking about her service dog, some dogs like my Archer are so keen to please and so want to do everything that makes it easier to be a service dog. With other dogs are more stubborn, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the more stubborn ones are better for police work. That's also in Missouri. At least there's a difference between a service animal. It has to be a dog or a miniature horse. That's it. Yeah, that's all the ADA allows, dogs and miniature horses. She says, right when I had my apartment, they could not count Archer as a pet. Okay. And I wanted to go back to this just a minute because they couldn't count Archer as a pet because he was a service dog. And that's how she was allowed to have both in. And she says, but that doesn't mean you can take your ESA into Dollar General. I've seen a lot of people make that mistake and throw a fit saying their dog has rights and their dog is not in the correct manner. Totally agree with that. I've had issues. I think everyone has. When I go out, I have a copy of this that I carry with me just for situations like this. Because a lot of businesses don't know that even if you have a service dog, a legitimate trained service dog, a lot of places don't know that if they start creating a ruckus, they can be asked to leave. So in my papers, I have a copy of the ADA requirements for service animals. So I will pull them out and say, look, First thing, service animals must be under control. So, and this is the copy I keep on my desk for you guys for when we're talking about service dogs and ESAs and so forth. But I have this same copy in his little bag that he carries. It's really important to do that. Archer is my retired service dog, by the way. Yep, and he's beautiful and he's wonderful. Tanya says she keeps ADA cards in her purse that she gets from eBay that have the laws printed on them, law cards. Those are helpful. I've got a card also that I carry, and it's got a little space, and I have written down a little bit about service dogs, a little bit about his training. It's all in like one paragraph. And then I do his paw print on it. So especially like when kids stop me and they want information or they want to pet him, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I can't let you pet him. But because you've asked if you would like to have his pawtograph, his paw print, then I've got that I can give you. And I use it for adults too. And I have the phone number for the Department of Justice, because you got to remember the Department of Justice covers service dogs. Fair Housing Act covers housing. So when you're out in public, your service dog is covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And there is an ADA information line. And that number is at the bottom of the service dog law page. So when you go to ada.gov and you print this out, that number can be super helpful. So have it close. Tanya says, I've also had people call the police on me trying to say I stole her service dog and I had to prove otherwise. Yeah, there's a special level of that goes with that. Not cool. And she says, even if a service dog is retired, they keep those manners that they have ingrained in them. Once in a while, Archie goes out and works just so he still has those behaviors. And I think that's important too. Plus, service dogs, they work. That's what they do. And you train working breeds. And they need those skills. We were talking the other day, my husband and I, Pissy may be looking at early retirement because it's hip and back, and that's just one of those things. But he's always going to be a service dog. He alerts for blood sugar and seizures. And once he has that skill, he's always going to have that skill. So even though we talk about retirement, he's still always going to have those skills. So his retirement is going to be very, very different than what a pet is going to be like. So, yeah. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Tanya. That's a great point. And she says that's why I wound up with a Chihuahua. He had to retire early, and he wanted someone to take care of what he's used to doing. So I got him a Chihuahua puppy. It's his puppy. Aw. That's so cute. That's so cool. But they need that. They need that. And Candy, who couldn't be here tonight, her dog that she has, she had trained, went from an ESA to a trained service dog, and Candy's a Chihuahua, and she's really super cute. We had the privilege of meeting in person, and she shared with me some of the struggles that she had about having a small dog and having her trained to be a service dog, and the process that she went through. And of course, she also had to talk to her veterinarian. I think I missed mentioning that earlier, but that's very important. Because one of the things about service dogs, you can kind of slide if your pet is an at-home pet or at-home ESA. But you have to stay on top of things when you're out among the public as a service dog. Your grooming has to be on point. You don't want to take a dog out and have them shed everywhere. So that's important. You have to have, of course, the temperament we talked about. You have to have that. And you also have to make sure it's free of parasites inside and out. So your maintenance for your dog goes up dramatically. Because where you're at home and you might think, oh, the toenails are getting a little long. Well, I'll clip those later. No, if you think your toenails are getting a little long on your service dog, you have to trim them. If you think the fur is getting a little long on your service dog, you have to take care of that. And that can mean going to the groomer more frequently and getting your dog, de-shedded, brushed out, tip to toe. And that's just the way it is. You've just got more upkeep. So your costs are going to increase. Tanya says, and that includes everything, staying on top of grooming. You can't have a dog who's going to leave clumps of hair everywhere. They have to be groomed. Yes, they absolutely. Tanya's reiterating what I just said, and it's one of the things to think about. So anyway, thank you, Tanya. Thank you for coming in. I wanted to let everybody know again, please give me a like on the live stream. When you get to the point where you like it, do go ahead and click that button. Okay, and Tanya says, when Archer works in public, he's shaved down and he's a Labrador, so he doesn't have too much hair, but I would rather put him in a sweater than have to deal with attitudes. And that's a good point. That's a good point. Pipsy is also a lab. I don't put him in a sweater unless it's cold. But I do have a towel that I take with me frequently, and he stays on the towel. That also, especially like if I'm at a long meeting, that helps mark his spot and makes him more comfortable. Let's see if I have a picture of him with his towel. I'm not sure I do. Yeah, I got lots of pictures of my sweet little dog, but I don't have a single picture of him on his towel. Whoops, wait. Incorrect information. He's halfway laying on the towel. Only halfway. But to a dog, part way is 100%, right? Okay. There we are. And I don't remember where we were. We were behind the scenes on something. And there he is on his halfway on his towel. But it helps. But he's also a lab, like Tanya was saying. So they do have a second coat that you have to keep brushed out, but certainly not as bad as like a husky. So, on this, I'm just going to show it. The dog bone used to say it wasn't me. Now it says it was me. So I think that was his confession. So, all right. Tony says, one last piece of advice I'm going to get is if you can't handle being the focus of attention, do not get a service dog. Oh, yeah. We should do a live stream on reasons not to get a service dog, or, the service dogs, the hidden things that they don't tell you. And remember, their paws can get burned on pavement and they can overheat. Yes. And all these are things to keep in mind when you're looking at turning your ESA into a service dog, because your ESA is just starting to go with you places, and there's a lot of things that go into it that you've just not ever needed to think about. Could be. I don't know, though. Mine was donated to the program. Still could be, though. She says that Pipsy looks so much like a skinny Archer, she bets they're related. And they could be. Excuse me. But, yeah, he was definitely a donated dog. But I'm very fortunate to have him. He's not what I was. He's just not what I was hoping for or had planned to get. I wanted the dog for mobility work. That is the whole reason that I got him. And it's like, sometimes God just gives you what you need. And I apparently needed a dog that was going to alert for blood sugar and seizures. I just didn't know it yet. So what can I say? Things happen. But he's a sweetie. All right. I'm looking to see if I have any other notes here that I've written down online, and I don't. Oh, I do. That's not accurate. I do have something. Excuse me. When you, after your ESA becomes a service dog, you're going to need to put your service dog on a joint supplement, which is something else to factor in. And that's because your dog is now going with you places and not just lounging at home on the couch. So yeah, you're going to need a joint supplement and good, solid, routine vet care. Tanya says, I don't know about you, but I was loving first sight. I saw that big head come through the door, and I thought, I hope that's my dog. I would have been devastated if he wasn't. And she's saying some landlords want you to have insurance. Makes sense. And she says she had that problem. Yep, they do. They do. And your dog being trained as a service dog, that training can help you on your insurance when you go to get it. It can make it easier to get insurance. Sorry, my lungs getting twitchy. And that's kind of a problem for me. I'm going to 2 churches tomorrow to talk about service dogs. So yeah, but it's a good thing. So anyway, that's a little about service dogs and about how to make your ESA a service dog. It's not just in the gear. It's not just in the want. It's not just in the looks. It's all about whether you qualify, and it's all about the training. Okay. They do. They do. And there's other companies, dog gear companies that do. And I joined the IAADP, International Association of Assistance Dog Partners. And oh my gosh, they have this long list of companies that they have worked with that give discounts. And Pipsy's gear, not gear, that's not what I meant to say. Pipsy's service dog joint supplement, I can have that on a grant through them because the membership is cheaper than the medication. So I got it on a grant through them, and it helps tremendously. But so do the discounts on the other things. So yeah. And Tanya says, it's a journey, but I would never trade it or him for anything. That's awesome. Yeah, it took me a while for it to really click with Pacer and myself, with Pipsy and myself. And yeah, it did. We got there. And she says, yeah, if that's not available in Missouri, or at least not in my part of Missouri, that stinks. Okay. I think that the IAADP, it's got to be nationwide, because I'm not anywhere near their office or anything. So, yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight, for hanging out. Tanya, it was great to see you. Absolutely great. So I'm going to get back with Laurel and see if we can get Candy the Wee Service Dog on here at another time. She's been on before, and she's a delight to have on. Tanya, you're always welcome too. And let's see. I understand. She says she plans to get another one eventually, but she doesn't want to do another service talk right now because, are you still young enough to be? Why can't I go? He doesn't understand that he has a disability. And she says, great to see you. I hope to see you too soon. I hope to see you soon too. We're going to figure something out there. So, all right, y'all. So thank you for coming out. Remember, always hashtag be bodacious. Do not let life get in the way of living. And I want to do a plug. If you haven't seen the last video that I did most recently with Pipsy, you should, because it's so cute. The thing is, it's just a little shorts. Don't worry, it's really short. But I was having a low blood sugar reaction, and my blood sugar was not coming up fast enough to suit him. So he continued to hit me with his paw, which is how he does his alert. And I think it's really important that people see that so they understand when you go into public what the behavior is and isn't. Because it's easy to see a dog continually pawing at somebody and think they're misbehaving when they're actually alerting. And she says her big guy, he doesn't understand. He's been hurt. He still wants to take care of Mama. Yeah. Yep, I understand. She said if Archer wants me to sit down, he hits me in the back of the legs with his head. Isn't that funny? Just kind of a light bump, she says. That is so cute. That is funny. And yeah, I'm up for a triple header too. Absolutely. So thank you all. Go check out that video. Come back Saturday at 7:30. We're going to do another live stream. This is Service Dog Month. So on Saturday nights, we've been doing live streams about service dogs. And next week, the 28th, that's my last official service dog Saturday live stream. But if you all want this to continue, let me know. This is definitely something we can continue. And we can move it to another date or time. It's just what's best for everybody. And Tanya says, oh, okay. She thought it was weird. Archer was not trained for diabetic alert, but one of my friends, he did. He alerted to her diabetes from day one. I just think that's cool. Our dogs are such amazing, amazing, amazing animals. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want a blood sugar alert dog, seizure alert dog. I just wanted mobility. I got a mobility dog. I was told I was getting a mobility dog, but he had all these extra plus benefits. Just amazing. We should do a show about how to handle it when your service dog has to retire. I found that very difficult. Yeah, that is something we could talk about. Unfortunately, I really don't have much experience in that because mine passed away, and that was gut-wrenching. But certainly we can talk some about that. You'll have to lead it, though, just because mine hasn't retired yet. And Tanya says, I see you and I are totally different. I needed a multiple disability dog, but the ones near me only did one disability, and you can't pick what disability that day. Yeah, I guess I needed the other abilities that he has. And maybe I just didn't know, because he certainly, he is on the money with his alerts for both low and high. He does 2 different alerts for low and high. One for low, one for high, different alerts. And our alert that he did for high blood sugar is actually how he was a release finalist. So excited about that. So excited. Thousands of entries. One service dog makes it past the jury to be a finalist. Only 5 finalists in our category out of thousands of entries. And it's his high blood sugar alert. So, yeah. But I felt like with mobility, I needed mobility, balancing, bracing, help up steps, help down steps. Sometimes in an elevator, when the elevator goes up quickly, down quickly, that little shift, sometimes you need some help with that. So, yeah. He has also learned more by working with you. That's possible. I know I've learned a lot more by working with him. Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. That was such an amazing experience. We didn't get to go to the red carpet event, to the awards ceremony. If we become finalists next year, I'm moving heck and high water. I don't care what I have to reschedule. I had a conflict this year, and I'm just wiping the conflict off the table if I have any kind of scheduling issue, because by golly, we'll be there. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. All right, so check us out Saturday, 7:30 Eastern Time, right here on this channel. Like, share, and subscribe. Tanya's saying, absolutely, please. That really helps. Again, we have memberships, and that information is on the join button down below. So thanks for watching. You all take care, and I will see you on some videos this week and then Saturday at 7:30. Good night, you all.